My guest today is Barry Liebert from Mazinga, and this is Accord Live. Welcome, Barry.
I see you.
Well, Barry, thank you for being with me today. First of all, you've got to explain the word Mazinga. It kind of threw me off. What does Mazinga mean? Where did you get it from?
We really wanted the word we, you and me, because we think it defines community. Mazinga comes out of Swahili. It's the same concept. It's about beehives, collaboration, and openness. And the way we looked at it is we could buy we for about $1 million, or we could buy Mazinga for $7.50 from Go Big Daddy.
Tell me, how did you start Mazinga? Where did the concept come from, and how are you doing today?
So we started the business in 2001, working for very large organizations that were customer service departments of American Express, Home Shopping Network, Home Depot. A lot of them looked like competitors, but they really wanted to set a set of standards about how to serve customers, and they didn't want to go to my alumni firm called McKinsey & Company. They wanted to set their own standard-setting body, and they created a community.
Right.
And we managed that community for them. We provided them the phone lines, the internet connectivity, and the physical meetings every single year so they could start a community in which they set standards for delivering customer service. That was its very beginning. 20 members in 2001. Today we serve 57 million people around the world.
Some of your clients are?
Everything from American Idol to Goldman Sachs to Deloitte to Ernst & Young to Marsh McLennan. Okay,
talk to me about crowdsourcing and social networking. Really, what is it other than, we had Yahoo groups in the old days and those kinds of email threads that we put together. We have teams.org here at Accord. Give me your definition.
So I think nothing's new in this world. As you said, community is what Accord is all about. I think community is what the world's about. The difference is the channels have changed. So you and I are building a community by having a conversation in a physical world right now. You and I are having a conversation. We're sharing best practices. We're talking about our personal and business lives. We're talking how we both got started, how you started at Accord 6 years after it was founded. I started this in 2001. What I think's changed is the channel has changed. So one, you still have communities like your yearly event in Las Vegas, but you also have a phone line. So you can have conference calls, you have podcasts, you have blogs, and you have online environments, let alone mobile environments. Communities are nothing other than groups of people getting together and using whatever channel they want to use to have whatever conversation they want to have to share information.
We pulled together anywhere between 2,500 and 3,000 people at our annual conference, the Accord Loma Forum. And I always thought in the past, 2 or 3 days, wouldn't it be wonderful to have this type of networking going on all year long? So we're thought of like a virtual conference, a virtual exhibit hall, things like that. And we are going to talk to you a little bit about how we might be able to do something with our conference. And quite honestly, as we get into this conversation, probably a lot more about how we can bring our communities together, because Accord is, in fact, an umbrella organization for lots of different communities, for lots of different businesses around the world.
So I absolutely agree. So I think the event business is a transaction-based business. We meet once. Maybe today will be the only time we meet. I hope not. Yeah. We meet once in Las Vegas. I hope not. And that's where the world has been written. It's basically written as a transaction. I buy something once. I meet somebody once. And the world has been created that way. Yeah. But there are membership organizations like yours that understand, and there's lots of them, that says, well, hold on a minute here. Even if I'm a membership organization, I'm still only meeting once a year. Why don't I meet every day of the year? And why don't I use every channel to have everybody meet? And so I think we're at the very beginning where people realize, and business realize, what a better way to basically keep my customers and my people engaged is by letting them talk 24/7, 365 days a year.
All right, get a little bit more granular with
you.
Because there's a number of services out there like LinkedIn and so forth, and my perception of some of them is that you have a lot of contractors and consultants looking for their next opportunity, so they troll those communities, if you will, for those kinds of opportunities. But yeah, if you're an executive working for a major firm, anyone that you might have mentioned to me earlier, what drives you to get online and say, okay, I've got this issue problem, type it up there, identify yourself, have people come back with comments? What about the proprietariness of maybe their strategy, what have you? What kind of things would a normal guy just get out there and put up there and and share.
Well, I think we should go back. I think we have all types of communities, which is physical communities like the one you and I are going to establish, and you establish every single year, that can move to phone-based communities. And then there's online and mobile communities. It's really important to recognize who your constituents are. So you can use whatever type of channel or technology you want to use to connect that group of people. So most of my executives do not want to use the internet to build community. They're very comfortable in the physical world, and they're very comfortable in the phone world. They are not yet comfortable in the mobile or internet world to build community. So I don't try to convince them that they should do what I call channel jumping, try a new technology to build communities. So yeah, like you and I talked about in your room, doing change management's impossible. I'd rather let people do what they want to do and just surround them with enabling technologies.
Right. So my perception, and I mentioned that I have a 19-year-old daughter in college who uses Facebook or MySpace, and quite honestly, it's just she just tells the story of her life on her wall there, and people are responding back and forth. And quite honestly, I think maybe when teenagers reach a certain age, they go there and they just white everything out before they go on the next job interview, so to speak. But it's just crazy, and this is not what we're talking about here.
It is not. So my son, who's 20 years old, does the exact same thing. As he always says, Dad, Facebook is nothing other, if you know Salesforce.com, it's nothing other than dating on steroids. I can find lots of people very, very fast and have conversations. It's a lot less expensive way to find the woman you love, as my son says. But that's not business. Maybe Facebook is a business for advertisers, but the way I think about business is businesses are trying to build enduring relationships. They don't lose their customers or employees. And what they're trying to find is new ways to stay engaged using whatever channel. That means if it's physical meetings, that's great. If it's phone-based meetings, that's great. And if it's online environments, that's great. But they want to engage all year long nowadays because they realize if they only engage once a year, there's a good chance that their customers could go to another company.
True. So in your experience, what has been the difference between success and failure for organizations who want to move in this direction?
Well, you probably know the answer. You're doing something really cool and engaging here today. You're having a conversation with me that you're going to make available to other people. And they don't have to be here today to have this conversation. There's just a few people watching today. Yeah. So there are companies who are the very best, believe it or not, are we call programmers. They provide content and services to organizations that are their customers or employees so that they can learn something and they surround that content and program. Think of like yourself as being the head of TV Guide or you're the host of this TV Guide show. Our leading companies are now realizing they're nothing other than educational organizations or standard-setting organizations or services organizations, but they produce content in which people can engage and discuss that content so that they feel like they're part of the solution, not just a recipient of that information.
In fact, that's what you and I were talking about earlier. A lot of what we need to do here, what we do, is not only set standards, but help members adopt and implement standards. And that poses lots of questions because it gets complicated.
Correct.
So we have subject matter experts who sit back, get questions, respond to the questions, and we could use this for that purpose as well, but also engage the rest of the community who may have answers to those questions because they use similar paths, so to speak.
Correct.
And dive into the conversation.
And the reason you want them to do that is you know that change management is really hard. If you get them to participate and you get them to add content to the conversation, you get them to do Q&A, and they begin to feel empowered like they're not just students, but they're teachers in their own environment. You know the old expression of, teaching a fisherman how to fish versus giving them a fish. Yep. If you give them a voice, they feel like they're part of the solution. They can adopt standards and adopt behaviors much faster if you say, you will do it this way.
Mm-hmm. How would some of our members begin to leverage these kinds of technologies and social networks who are insurance companies and insurance agents and brokers and risk managers and so forth?
Well, I think Accord is in a really great place. I think Accord could set up what I'll call as a master community, which you already have done.
That's good.
A master community. Yeah. But community, I want to go back, nothing's new here in the world. When you set up a master community, doesn't mean because Accord makes the master community available to everybody that the individual community, and you set the standards for the community, you provide the XML bridges, you set up the technology, doesn't mean people can't permission it. Your companies need to be able to take the Accord master community, private label it, private brand it, and let their individual groups get together. But you gather the intellectual property and content so you can feed back to the entire community best practices across all of their conversations.
So those subgroups are closed groups for those?
They are closed.
I see.
And they're closed for good reasons. Their group could either be a private company, a special interest group, just call it a task. They get together just for a moment of time. They want to talk about a special topic. It could even be an event community.
Talk to me about the tools then. So you've convinced an executive this is great, we want to do something, get started. What type of tools are available for them to use?
I want to go back. So you have one tool you're using already. In fact, you're using quite a few we talked about today.
Yeah.
One, you're using a physical event called Las Vegas. It is a place in which people understand how to start the dialogue. And you shouldn't forget, real estate like this we're sitting in today is a technology. It allows people to come together. We are using a separate set of technologies in this physical room. We're using, right here, television to basically have a conversation. And we should be able to put that content, as you already do, up on your website. But we should also use things like telephone again. We should be able to have a weekly call with Greg's weekly summit, in which they should be able to call in and have a conversation with you and me or whoever you're speaking with. It doesn't have to be television. It could be literally phone-based weekly calls, right? It's like analyst calls. All that should sit up on in an environment where people can add additional comments, where they can say, I really like what Barry said, and I really like what Greg said, but in my company, these are my challenges, or these are my successes. And so people can add their content to our conversation. And the same thing with phone-based conversations or event-based conversations in the physical world.
Now, Barry, you know that I've got about 3,000 people coming to Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas in May, next month.
Great.
And you're going to be our keynote in one of our general sessions in the morning. What are you thinking about? How do you frame your presentations? What is your objective? When you've got that audience in front of you, what are you looking to accomplish? Where you at the end can say yes. And tell me a little bit about that presentation, because you've got it in 2 parts. You're going to talk a little bit, and then you bring people up on stage with you.
Correct. So I'm like you. I can't do change management anymore. I've decided that, in fact, people do really understand community. Yeah. But the problem for business leaders are they haven't connected the dots yet. So what I'm going to show people is that they already understand Facebook through their children. True. They already understand their local neighborhoods. I'm a tennis fanatic. I understand the United States Tennis Association. For the golfers, they understand the USPGA, right? So I think, okay, I'm going to first say, listen, there's nothing threatening here. In fact, there's nothing new here. They all understand community. The second thing is, whether they know or not, they belong to communities like Accord already. And the third thing I'm going to try to show them by bringing on the people on stage is that in little tiny ways, they've started the journey of using the internet and mobile devices to take those physical and personal communities to their business lives to enhance what they do every single day.
Interesting. So what does the world look like 3 to 5 years from now with all the social networking and all the new kids getting out of college and coming into work for our organizations and being the new consumers? Is it going to be recognizable to guys like me?
Neither to you nor me. Neither. Or any of our executives. However, we're going to think it's crazy, right? But I said to my mother and father, who are in their 80s now, my mother and father are all alive, guys, I know you thought our generation was crazy because that was their view. And you might think my kids are even crazier than we were, but the bottom line is they're just generational shifts. They're just enabling technologies that change the way people work and live their lives. And if you accept that, then I think what our challenge is, and the executives we serve, is to let this world migrate the way it's migrating, which is to give everybody a voice and moderate it, and most importantly, set standards. And we may kid about this, but for American standards, we set standards because the American Idol wants standards set about who's going to talk about what on their show. And Goldman Sachs wants standards set. And so these, what look like crazy environments, are not crazy at all. There's a standard setter like eBay, which is eBay. They set the standards of engagement. They manage and facilitate their communities for success.
Barry, I am looking forward to Las Vegas, and I wish it was here sooner.
Well, I look forward to working with you.
We'll get there. Thanks a lot for being with me today.
Thanks for having me.